What I love about Anchor is that it's given me creative control of my own material. I was approached by a big company to do a podcast about the art world, and I didn't want to sign over all rights to them. Anchor has allowed me to make this podcast and to keep creative control as well as financial control in terms of advertising. Anchor gives you everything you need in one place for free. You can use it on your phone or your computer. There are tools that help you to upload your recordings that you've done separately or on the app. They'll distribute it for you as well, which again, I couldn't wrap my mind around distribution, and they have it all there for you in one place: Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and many more. You can easily make money from it as well. They help you advertise. As you can see right now, I'm getting my first ad out through Anchor. And all you have to do is download the app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Good luck with your podcast and getting your voice out there and owning your content. Thank you for joining us for episode 7 of the Bees and Honey podcast. Sara Kay is the first gallerist we interview, and she's part of the Women in the Art series, which is sort of silly because there are so many women doing wonderful things in art, but we have to start somewhere, and we will get to all of them sometime. Sara founded her own gallery in the East Village, and she also founded POW Arts, professional organization of women in arts. She's a phenomenal woman who knows a lot about art and the art market. Let's listen to her describe the trajectory of her career in her own words. So tell us a little bit of how you got into the business or into the art field, as we like to call it sometimes.
It's into the addiction, you mean?
Into the addiction, exactly.
Into
Our
the
thing,
addiction.
as you said.
The obsession, the addiction. How did I get into it? I was raised by an artist mother. Spent my weekends at the Guggenheim thinking I'd become the next Frank Lloyd Wright. Cute. And then as I got older, I thought I'd be a writer. Maybe I will be a writer. But I thought then I'd be a full-time writer. And about, a few months into university, I had this, I had this thing which said, change your major to art history. And so I went down to the office the next day, and I did, and I'm not an impulsive person, so that's fun. I changed my my degree, and I never looked back.
That's a great story. For many reasons. I don't want to interrupt your flow, but you remind me that there's 3 things. The addiction, your former colleague John, he somehow segued into another field, so he escaped the addiction. 2, the writer. I'm fascinated by the idea of art dealers whose first thing was writing. Many art dealers' first thing was writing. I know Larry Gagosian studied literature.
Okay.
Leo Castelli was supposedly writing. And you yourself had that transition from the writing to the visual arts. Me, myself too, because I studied creative writing and art history, and I've combined both. But anyway, we'll go back to those topics later. Carry on.
I didn't know there was this link, but I love it.
Yeah, there is. It's my personal, what I see, but I see it very often.
Well,
anyway.
It's artistry, Anywho, so what did I do? I studied conservation, fresco conservation. I studied art history. I had many internships because I wanted to just kind of be immersed. And that led to my first job when I moved back to the States, which was at the Museum of American Folk Art, where I quickly became obsessed with outsider art and pockets of American folk art like quilts and weather vanes and quirky stuff that I love. But museum life and folk art full-time was not for me. I really had a hunger to be on the business side. That's an equal passion. I don't know about addiction, but hunger, I suppose. And I wanted to work at Christie's. I don't know why. was another thing like that. Like, I'm going to work at Christie's. And I ran into a friend of mine at a pizza place on the Upper East Side. And she says, oh, I work for Christie's. I said, great. Do me a favor. See if there's an opening in Old Master Drawings or Contemporary. Fast forward. I was in the Old Master Drawings department for many years, which was incredible. To just play with works on paper all day long is like a gift. Wow. And from there, one of my clients, Jan Kruger, his director was leaving, and I was toying. Well, at that point, I was thinking about leaving the field for not the art field, but Old Master Drawings for a number of reasons, and I was toying between another job, and he offered me this job, and I was going to take the other job because it was kind of cushy and corporate, and I thought I could be good. Yeah. And I called a friend and I said, well, I have this offer, and then I have an offer to work with Kruger. And she said to me, it's the Picasso estate. It's Jan Kruger. You take that job. And she hung up.
Right. Wow, I didn't know he had the Picasso estate, but that's amazing.
He had the estate of Marina Picasso from Picasso's death until his own death. Mm-hmm. And it was transformative. It completely changed the trajectory of my career. It was incredible. It was being on the front lines every day, and transformative. And from there, well, after Jan passed away in 2008, kind of doesn't get better. Like, where do you go from there? Yeah. Where do you go from there? There's, similar galleries that are more family owned, and so I thought, okay, if you can go from folk art to Old Masters to modern, you can definitely evolve again. Yeah. And I kind of love that, and I see things that way. I see art that way. Mm-hmm. I see myself that way.
It's an evolution.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's one very long conversation.
So then you worked with yourself after that?
Then we kept the gallery open for 2 more years. And at that point I thought, okay, what's the thing I haven't done? And I hadn't worked for, sort of large-scale contemporary gallery. Mm-hmm. And I was really curious about that. And I also had a great desire to move to London. Okay. So there was White Cube. That's when White Cube happened, at the perfect time. What an incredible opportunity. Mm-hmm. And it worked out really well. It was for lots of reasons. It worked out really well. Yeah. And it gave me the possibility to learn something new, to experience something new. I really hadn't worked with living artists. Mm-hmm. So it was wonderful. And I was there for a few years. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, and it was a crazy hard decision to leave because there was nothing wrong. There was really, I loved living in London, great life, everything was great, but ultimately I didn't see myself
doing it forever.
Well, I didn't see myself in London forever. I didn't see myself in that space forever. So I just picked up and I went home.
Which was New York.
Which is New York. Mm-hmm. Prior to moving to London, my friend said, "You're such a New Yorker, you'll be back." I was like, no. That's not true. It's 100% true. This is very much my home. And, at the time when I was living in London, I would commute back and forth frequently. And when I'd arrive in New York, my body would just sink into the pavement, and I would relish in the accent, the Queens or Brooklyn accent of the guy in the customs office, and I would look at him with such, adoration on hearing his voice. And when I would land in Heathrow, I was disoriented for at least 24 hours, and that never wore off.
Wow.
So, it says a lot.
Yeah, it says a lot. But it also says that the right place finds you. Whether it's for a short period or a long period, you find yourself in that space. And you're master of your evolution, which I think is an amazing thing. Yeah. I mean, it's important for people to realize, I think, that a lot of life happens to us, but a lot of life is also our decision directing things. Yeah. So you talked about working with contemporary artists at White Cube. What artists do you represent who are contemporary? I know Joseph Lapiana. I've been to his studio once before. Yeah. But tell me what your program looks like around contemporary artists.
Sure. So I actually don't represent contemporary artists. I'm not sure that model works for me. I'm not sure that model works, to be quite honest. So what I've done in the first
gallery representation.
Yeah, so what I've done in the first 2 years, this is two years now, going on to 3, is I've done solo projects, which have been really wonderful, and that's something that's worked for me, worked for the artists. There's something very organic about it, and and the other side of it, which is a big portion of the programming, is historic. I'd say it's probably 60-40 in terms of doing historic presentations versus contemporary presentations. And for me, that it's brilliant because it allows me to bring together all these areas that I have worked and that I love and that I am interested in, I'm seeped in.
Like the last exhibition juxtaposing Alice Neal with Picasso.
Yes, there was Alice Neal and Picasso. There was, we did a really wonderful exhibition, which was 18th and 19th century American quilts and abstract expressionist paintings and sculptures by women. That was really dreamy. So, really mix it up.
Yeah.
And I mix it up because that's the language I understand.
Well, that's interesting too, because a lot of art has been in the last few years putting things literally into these white cubes or boxes, and not necessarily allowing them to speak to each other, which is the natural language of art, mixing it up, things talking to each other. They don't happen in a vacuum.
No, they don't happen in a vacuum, and that doesn't really work for me. So that was one of the massive reasons that I opened this space, was to allow for that dialogue to happen. It's the only way I understand things.
And how did you find this space? I mean, because there are a lot of galleries in Chelsea or on the Lower East Side. I mean, there's the new museum, I suppose, and I think the Bowery Hotel is actually a great location to be in as well. But how did you decide to be in 4th Street?
Yeah, well, it's actually what you said, that life finds you, space finds you. It's like that. This space found me. So after White Cube, I had a great conviction that I was not going to open up a gallery for lots of reasons. I mean, a lot of conviction. And I think I needed a lot of space after so many years of working for different...
Space in terms of psychological space?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, and I also needed rest. I had been traveling way more so than I could sustain. So I took that space, and I did really wonderful things inside that space. I mean, at first I thought I was losing my mind because I went from being a complete workaholic and, nothing else to all of a sudden stopping. But after I thought, I was having some sort of breakdown, which I wasn't, I created, really wonderful things in that period of time. And I think that space just allowed this gallery to find me. So what happened was I was living in Chelsea, in one of the few industrial buildings that remain. It was myself and a number of artists that lived in this building, and downstairs was Laurie Bookstein, who was giving up her space, and someone mentioned it to me, and I ended up in it. I don't know why. And I was looking around. I'm like, this is a really beautiful space. Okay, maybe I'll look for a space. And I went down to visit my friend Kwong, who's the owner of Gallery 1969 on Allen Street. And Kwong and I were doing what we do, just sort of like talking and manifesting. And he said to me, do you feel inspired in Chelsea? Do you find... Basically, his message was, go where you feel inspired. And I wasn't quite sure where that was, because I had this idea in my mind that this neighborhood, the East Village, and I'm really at the northern part of the East Village, which I love, but, this neighborhood was like too hip, and I was too old, and, sort of not within the vein of what others were doing down here. But I had this sort of tug at the same time to call my friend Bill. And I called my friend Bill, and Bill's like, yeah, I just, acquired this townhouse in the East Village. I was like, all right, I'll come over and see it. And I walked into the space, and I was done.
That's funny, yeah.
Yeah.
I like that idea of sort of visioning, it's out there and it's pulling you as much as you are going after it.
Yeah,
Amazing.
it's very much a dance.
Yeah.
It has to be.
Yeah,
it has to be.
Pull, just making that pull.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. So.
Yeah, well, I think you found a good place, and I think your following has appreciated it as well. I mean, so when you put these shows together, you have collectors that come in and say, wow, I never thought of this, or I never thought of the relationship, and yes, I'm going to acquire this piece because that relationship makes sense to me. Yeah?
Yeah, I think that's a really exciting part for me, is creating something that will engage, the viewers to perhaps see differently or think differently. Maybe not. Yeah. But, that really excites me when it happens, or even when it doesn't, whatever the response is. So yeah, the gallery does have this following, and it comes from different avenues. It comes from my already existing client base. It comes from this wonderful neighborhood. This is so much a neighborhood of people, of artists, of so many different types that have lived here and gravitate to the space. So yes. It really it's kind of like this interesting home where people keep dropping in.
Yeah, well,
which is really fun.
I'm very conscious of people's time. Otherwise, I would drop in more often and say hi to you too. But let me see, what's the next question here? I think I asked you this already. You've exhibited everything from classical works by Dürer to contemporary guys like La Piana. How do you decide on the gallery's program? I know you like to mix things up, but do you have an idea in your head and then you gather the artist, or do you have the artist and then the idea comes to you? How do you develop, like, for example, the show that's coming up for the fall, opening in September?
Yeah, so I guess the programming has been very organic. At times that can be tricky, right? Because you still need to plan. It's still a public physical space, but I really like the organic nature of it. Yes, I have ideas, and then I sort of build around it, and sometimes the ideas come to me. So it's a bit of both. And I like that there's definitely a mission to my gallery, and there's a vibe, and I stick to that, but then there's a lot of flexibility in that.
Yes.
And that's been important for me to have. I mean, that's the whole point of having your own space.
Yeah, I guess so. As a female art dealer and gallerist, do you feel compelled to show female artists? Who are your favorite female artists, if you have any? And I asked this question especially because I was speaking to a collector the other day, and he said to me, some people are looking to buy anything, so long as it's not a white male heterosexual.
Yeah. You gotta swing to the other side, right? Yeah. Am I compelled? I don't know if that's the word I would use. It feels much more.
Organic,
I don't know.
Again.
Yeah, again, listen, as a woman, I identify with other women. I don't distinguish between me and her, and I think that's what drives me to. Exhibit women in the gallery, support female artists as I can. Not exclusively. I don't think exclusively is the right way to go at all. But there's an emphasis there because of my own, I guess, because I don't distinguish between myself and other women in many ways. There's an identification there. So I guess, that's what moves me to do the types of projects that I do and support women artists as I can, but within the context of a much greater
vision.
Dialogue and vision, of course, and again, without the exclusivity, which I think would hurt. So, oh God, I have lots of favorite female artists, and it's funny I don't play favorites, but I don't know. There's been so many women artists that have come into my life that have been so meaningful, not just in a professional level, but in a personal level.
Right.
I remember.
Well, then don't mention them.
Yeah.
Only maybe to shed light on some for people who are not so familiar with the artists of our time who are female. I mean, recently we see a lot of names in news or whatever, but if you want to help someone.
Yeah, well, no, it's more than that. That's people that that are very dear to me. I mean, towards the end of my stay at White Cube, the gallery did a presentation with Senga Ngugi, And I remember, I was like really burning out in terms of travel, and I got on a plane to fly to Denver from London, where she was having a solo exhibition at the Denver Contemporary Art Museum. Mm-hmm. And, she's just a magical creature, Senga. Mm-hmm. And it's flourished into this incredible friendship, which I cherish. And, it's also interesting to see, women like Senga, someone like Betty Tompkins, for example, mm-hmm. or Ursula von Ringsgaard. There's so many women that have been working for so long and are only seeing the fruits of that now. Yeah. But aside from that, these are really women that have come into my life as like mentors and friends, mm-hmm. and it's so special.
Well, I'm really fascinated by that idea as well of the artists finding the people who can help carry their evolution along, whether it's in an exhibition or selling work, or even just having a conversation that then stimulates an idea and they go back to the studio with that idea. Yeah. So, they're very good at creating their own worlds as well. I wanted to ask, are you interested in art fairs as a means of expanding the business? I have another episode about art fairs, so I don't think you do any, right?
I haven't. Mm-hmm. I haven't done it, and that's been purposeful. Art fairs are tremendously taxing, mm-hmm. in every way. So I really gave myself time to just sink into this space and mm-hmm. focus on my programming, mm-hmm. And keeping it kind of contained for the time being. Yeah. Although, the benefit to the art fair mm-hmm. Can be huge, of course, mm-hmm. the exposure, for sure. I guess, it's not as though I opened the gallery and just was kind of like appeared. I've been doing this for more than 20 years, so mm-hmm. I think it gave me the luxury to not have to do that right away, which has been great because it's heavy. Mm-hmm. That's a heavy commitment aside from the already existing heavy commitment. Yeah.
I think all those points are very valid.
Yeah, but I think if and when I would be very discerning. My gallery has a special feel. And the fairs, they each have their own identity. So I'd be, I think, extremely picky, and rightly so, as to which ones I would apply and participate. Mm-hmm. But it's something, it's something that's out there, and I just kind of let it be for the time being.
Yeah. And I think we're going through a moment of transition as well in terms of how fairs are structured and how many there are. And I just read an article about a new fair coming to New York where the fair will share part of its profits with the dealers in the fair. I didn't read the whole article, but that's another model that just showed up recently. There's also Swiss Beats with his no commission art fair. Right. So they're going through these, I guess it's evolution in and of itself. If you had to give advice to a young aspiring gallerist, what would you say? Because again, things are changing even on the gallery level. The idea of having a space is something that people are grappling with now too. With the advent of things like Artsy, where you have these virtual spaces and stuff like that. What would you say for a young person coming up who had an idea to work with artists?
Young person looking to work with artists. Be patient. Be really patient. I would pass along the advice that my friend gave to me. Situate yourself in a way that you're inspired. Try and give yourself a lot of freedom around it if you can. Be fair. And really, kind of be creative in it. I find that in some ways, even though we're in this like massively creative field, one that is unencumbered by regulation or borders. We're unregulated in many ways, and artistically and creatively, of course, too, which allows for so much. And I think at times, we kind of get stuck in these, a certain type of this, a certain type of that. But I think, get as creative as you can with it. I think ultimately that will lead to your success, and whatever that means. And success, it can be defined so broadly. And also be grounded. I feel like a lot of times, it's just kind of this, like, I have an idea and I'm going to run with it, and that's brilliant, but also being grounded in that is really important, because having a space comes with so much responsibility, and sort of, finding that, I don't know if it's a balance, but walking along those, two sides, which is following so much, what your vision is, whatever it is, and also being really grounded in reality. It takes both.
Yeah, and I think the artists need you to be grounded, because some of them are not grounded.
Yeah.
Not all of them, but some of them.
Absolutely. And saying no. You gotta say no a lot. Probably more than you say yes.
Yeah, I think I've counted how many no's I got recently from people myself, and I keep thinking every new no brings me that much closer to the yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
I love it.
So I will let you get to work. I know today's Tuesday, you're about to begin another week, and I wish you all the best. Thank you for taking the time to speak with us today.
It's my
and
pleasure.
I'll keep you posted.
Yeah.
And send us all invites.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for joining us for episode 7 of the Bees and Honey podcast. Next week we will speak to Rip Heyman, who's in charge of the Shari Dienst Foundation. And Rip has been preserving this artist's work, getting it out to museums and galleries across the world. And he will tell us a little bit about Shari's influence on artists like Rauschenberg, and pretty much give us a background on this artist who is relatively unknown, but who in her time was very, very important and celebrated. She was one of the founders of the Air Inn, probably the last dive bar in the West Village and West Soho. And she was just a phenomenal woman, a phenomenal artist, and we'll hear from someone who knew her very well more about her life and her work. Join us next week again. Thank you.